Kia ora crafty friends, it's Wednesday here from Crafty Kiwi Mama. I am back on the Whimsy Stamps channel today with a really sweet Halloween creation. I say it's a Halloween creation, I know I'm a little early, but we are about to launch our Halloween season at Whimsy Stamps, and I just couldn't sit on my hands any longer because it's my favourite time to create for the year. I love it more than any other time. I can't explain why, I just do. Halloween is my jam. I am really partial to pink for Halloween. So I've created this really cute Halloween card. It's a peachy pink, I will admit, not a true pink. I had a fun apricot-y card base that I wanted to use for this creation. But this is the finished card. I've ended up using Spooky Halloween, I Would Never Ghost You for the sentiment. And it's got the sweetest little shaker elements in the middle. 3 little ghosts that are kind of snuggling up at the moment and not moving terribly much. They need a good shake. It's super cute. And I've used several elements from different sets to bring together this really fun, very simple but very sweet Halloween card. So we'll be launching on the 1st of August and we will have the Halloweeners team designing with us. And I'm excited to share with you all the joys and excitement of that because it's going to be a stellar season. I had an inside sneak peek at what's coming around the corner and you don't want to miss it. If you enjoy Halloween in any way, shape or form, we've got you covered this Halloween season. So come and join the fun with us come August the 1st. But today, let's crack on and do this make together. I've got this die set which came with an additional ticket add-on. It's called the Terrific Tickets Add-ons die set. So Whimsy for the last year have had an amazing range of ticket dies, and this is one of the add-on ones. So it's got extra panels that you can use, and it's got these cool ones which you can do a row of these little tiny tickets, either to cut the tickets themselves or to cut into a panel. So that's my starting point, is the blank card. I've pre-cut this panel and I happen to have some leftover little bits of ghosty stamping from something I'd worked on last Halloween. And I've just taken the little panels, you can see I've got double-sided tape that I haven't taken the back off yet, that I've just put up to some open windows here. So the one that I've used from the die set is this one. And I've laid that into the card base. So it originally started off like that. I've laid it into the card base and I've cut my 3 little shapes out of it. And yeah, as I said, rummaging through my kit, I found this little panel here, which comes from Ghostly Greetings, I think the stamp set's called. And I used it on a little box that I made, a little treat box last year, and cut out these little panels. So you can kind of see the shape of them. I have actually trimmed them down. So they were rounded on all corners and just took a little bit off so that it fit within the frames that I needed. So I'm going to put those there. So we've got a couple of little breakthrough, background effect of the ghosts coming through this kind of cutesy pinky top layer. And then the next thing that I want to do, having taken that plain panel and cut the die into it and started to lay down my extra elements, is I wanted to take from this stamp set Halloween bitty borders, and it's got all these amazing little scenes, and I used a couple of them last year. I used this one and that one to create quite a cool card last year. I want to stamp a little scene on here at the very base because I've got ghosts here and ghosts here, and you may wonder what that little central empty window is for. The reason I've left that empty is because I don't actually have 3 of these left over from the last year's make. I only had 2, and I had one tiny little one that I thought, oh, maybe I could half put it in and then do something else on the other side and obscure it with a ghost. But as I was working on it, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, that might be really cute as a shaker with some shaker elements in it. Now you won't be able to see it so well particularly at the moment, but I've got 3 little ghosts that look, like they fit that little scene of ghosties there quite well. And it's quite a small shaker window, so I don't want to go extreme with the amount of shaker elements that I've got in there, but I've got a good little mix that I've pre-picked out of a few different things. I had some seed beads, so I've pulled open my seed bead box and pulled these ones that have a slightly iridescent nature to them. I think I also put in some of the pearly ones, which are these ones here. It's just a mix. I've used a piece of acetate, which is sitting on top of my Misty here, that I've cut just a tiny little portion of so that I can turn this over where I've laid my tape, and that's the first thing I'm going to do now. Oh, I need to edit that a little bit, so we're just going to have to straighten up that line, I can see. So we'll do that real time. Just a little bit more than we needed there. but I just want the acetate to cover just that window and not go over it. So where I've got my tape is kind of where I'm wanting it to stay. So we'll do that quickly now. So I'm just going to take my tiny bit of acetate and lay it over that section. I'm sorry if that's obscuring where it needs to be. It's just fitting. I did it a little to the left there, but there is enough. That's the edge there where my nail is. There's just enough there grabbing on that to make sure that that's okay. The reason I've left those little flaps sort of freely flapping is because the next thing I want to do is add in some of these little guys from the Boo die set from Whimsy, and I've pre-cut a few little white ones. These were some leftovers from a previous make as well. So I've got ideas in my head of how to use these little guys in my layout today. I've trimmed the sides of this purposefully because I want to use this pretty card set. So it's got this pretty sort of apricot-y coloured envelope and a nice apricot coloured card base. So this I thought would be really pretty over the top. Oh, see what I've just done there? Forgotten entirely that I've actually still got exposed adhesive on it. And I've stuck it down to the acetate underneath. What it's going to do is sit over the top of that. See the little acetate bit now? It will end up being a little shaker card filled with just this tiny little mix of shaker element. But first we have a few things that we need to do, and bearing in mind that I've just exposed a whole bunch of adhesive that I don't want sticking down to things, I don't know if you keep your spare bits of waste backing from your adhesive sheets and things like that. I do, for precisely this kind of reason, because this is a properly non-stick element, and that will be much easier to deal with. Okay, let's put this back in. What I wanted to do was lay in my corner. Okay, I obviously need to tack that down so it doesn't lift when I move this. Okay, and then what it means is I can then lay that down, which you can see I've already started to line up in the MISTI already. And I'm going to use my VersaFine Clear. This is a pigment ink, and it is a lovely dark ink when you stamp with it. It's an incredibly sort of opaque, really good coverage ink, which is why I like using it for silhouette scenes like this. I will add in probably a little bit of extra black at the base of that design, just to ensure that our little kind of hillside scene settles in properly and it doesn't look like it's just floating in the air. So I will ground that a little bit. It's obviously got a slight bit of resist on this cardstock, which I wasn't expecting because it felt pretty matte under my hand, but it does come from a glossy card pack, so that just means we need to add in a little bit more. Okay, so just gently adding that back in. The beauty of a MISTI is being able to do that several times. I'm going to just wonder if I need to let that dry for a little bit and then do it one more time once it's a bit drier. Okay, we can't go any faster with that, so we might put that aside for a split second. Okay, so that's that set. Looking good. And the point of me doing that is because I want to use a little character from the Roaming Monsters die set. I want to put my Grim Reaper off to the side and then have the graveyard there. And then I'm going to have some ghosts coming out from that little section and then the shaker in the middle, which will be the fun little interactive bit. So it'll be a cute card, hopefully, when it comes together. I obviously, if you can see the shine on that, it's got high shine right now. I really need to stop at this point and let the VersaFine Clear set and dry. I may actually emboss that because it kind of looks to me like it may not dry unless I emboss it. And it's so wet still. That's the good thing about this particular ink. Stays wet long enough that you can emboss the ink if you so wish. I'll do it with clear embossing ink because obviously I can't put anti-static powder on, which I normally would do when I'm embossing things. Not being able to put the anti-static powder on means I risk if I use black powder for it to have little specks all around the scene. I don't want that, so I'm going to use clear embossing powder. I'll just go and grab it. I'll be back in 2 seconds. I did actually say I was going to use clear embossing powder, but I picked up a new embossing powder just recently, and this may go terribly wrong, and if it does I'll just start everything all over again with a different kind of paper. But I picked up some black sparkle embossing powder, and it's a Ranger ink powder, and then I just want to see if that will give us an interesting look on this. That is so pretty. It's very holographic. It's got like rainbow sparkle in it. It's really interesting. I was expecting it to be like clear sparkle, but it's actually a really iridescent sparkle. So we'll see how that looks once I get a bit of the extra off it. Right, I'm going to have to work on that with a brush. That really didn't take that long to do the embossing, and it's come up pretty nicely. It's not too sort of covered in extra bits, so I'm happy with that. And somewhere along here I've got a little Grim Reaper that can sit in that little corner as if he's about to sort of head into the graveyard. And I wanted him just like that. And then I needed to rethink my ghost, because when I first measured it out, that panel was this size, which you can see is slightly bigger. I took off the trim off both sides. As I explained earlier, the reason for that was because I wanted to lay it over this particular card base. I live in New Zealand, so the card bases over here are not US sizes, they're UK sizes. So this is actually an A5, which is half an A4 sheet, folded in half, which we call A6 size, which is a folded A5. So the reason for that is so that I could get it to fit onto that card base nicely and give me a good sort of border all around, which I think that looks quite nice. And then I just need to fill in the shaker well and sort out what I'm going to do with that. I'm going to build it up from the back, and then it's going to stick straight down onto this card base so that you see the little apricot colour through it. I think that's pretty good. The other thing that I wanted to do is I've got a corner rounder here. The original card base had quite a wide corner round on it like this. I didn't do that, it came like that, it was already rounded, but that's quite a wide one. I decided with this panel I think I will go a little bit narrower so I don't lose quite so much off the corners, and I'm going to round them with my narrower corner rounder because I think it looks really cool. And also I didn't trim it perfectly, so it's nice to bring back that little shape into the corner. So I'm going to do all of the sides, and that just gives each side a decent sort of rounding, which I think will look nicer in the finished panel. Okay, it does look a little bit odd with all the padding and extras I've got on it, but as I explained before, that has to do with the fact that I left exposed sticky on there, and because it's the red liner tape, it's really sticky, so it's hard to get off things. So I left those loose bits as I was explaining earlier because I want to be able to figure out where I'm going to stick my ghosts. So this little guy's going to sit in the front here. I want his eyes to be pink. I think I want his eyes to be pink. I may end up coming back and putting a little bit of black behind. How would that look? I wonder. What do you think? Black or pink? They might look better black, actually. Let's remedy that. I think I've got some little off-cut cardstock and we can put black behind the eyes just to keep that black and white theme going. So I just need a little strip. This will be probably about right. Okay, I think that actually looks better with the black. I had thought I'd leave it just with the pink eyes, but liking the black. I could do this little guy. Actually, he looks kind of cute like that. Let's do that one. So pretty sure that was the way I had designed it to fit in there. If we flip it over, that should give us just the right amount of black that we were seeking behind that little face. Bring a bit of extra dimension to those eyes. I think that looks better. who actually fits in that border really nicely. I think on that I had some ideas for the sentiment aspect of things, and I had some stamp sets here that I was thinking about working with. There was some fun sort of, could be spooky Halloween or haunted night. Hauntingly sweet was another option. Or this one, I would never ghost you, which I think is kind of cute. Or happy hauntings, which could actually just go across the top. I also could put that's the spirit. A haunting we will go. So yeah, there's a few there. Whimsy has an amazing range of stamp sets. I am going to bring a smaller ghost down here. He's around here somewhere. I had him before. I've obscured him underneath something else, but I've got a little tiny ghost here. Well, not tiny, but smaller. That I wanted to look like he was, you know, all three ghosts were coming out from those little sections here, and then the little shaker bit in the middle. What I'm looking for and needing to find are the foam dot bits for this, because I think just putting a little bit of popped up interest. Oops, that did not pop out properly. Just the way that I was using it. I want to pop him up so that he sits with his wings sort of flying forward a little bit. So there you go, like that. This little one I'm going to just add flat. I don't think he needs to be popped up. Let me just do all of this on camera properly where you can see me. A little bit of wet glue. There is a bit of extra dimension there, but I don't think that's going to be a big problem. We'll see when we go to tack it down if I need to add like a thin foam square on that wing, etc. It might need that, but I don't think it will desperately need it, so I think that'll be okay. Yeah, that's okay. Just pops his head up a little bit where the black is behind, but I think that actually looks kind of cool. So then we've got just another little bit of black to add to that. Okay, and then that little guy can tuck in here like that. Oh, so I just need to lose a little bit of his tail, not much, but I don't want that to show up through where the little bit's going to be that has the shaker well. We want that to lay flat. So I wanted it to look like he's coming out from that little section. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And I might do him with one of these foam dots too, because it just elevates the body a little bit, and I think it looks kind of cool when that's done that way. Trouble getting my little black spots out today. Okay, so just at his head to just pop him up, and then because that's cardstock, I should be able to put a bit of wet glue there to make it stick down where the tail should meet the design, just to anchor that point. It doesn't need much more than that. And to stop it oozing, I will just tap it on the back of my hand again. So we're going to just get that to meet about there. And then, yeah, he looks like he's kind of flying up off the page because he's got a pretty good dimensional dot there. So let's move on to that bit now. And I'm going to do it with black foam strips. These are the scrapbook adhesives, 3L I think they're called, shaker strips. They're a great depth. I think they're 2 millimeters. This is a case of massive over adhesion. I really didn't need to put quite as much foam tape down as I have, but I'm just using what I've got. So that can fill that little gap there nicely. And then I'll just run a couple of strips down the bottom. So at the very bottom, and then I'll fill one in the middle just so we don't have a collapsy section there. None of that needed to be quite as severely as haired as I've done it. It feels a bit wasteful to put quite so much on, but at least I won't have a lot of warping because that should sit nice and flush. So at this stage, while I've still got that not quite yet on the card front, and I haven't done my little shaker well centerpiece, I'm just thinking I need to do my stamping. So I'll pull my Misty back out and let's see if we can put a little bit of stamping on top. Because I've put foam all over the back of this, I just need to pull out the foam lift from the Misty, so I'm going to take that out and just use it at that height. We shall figure out which sentiment we actually want to use. So a haunting we will go could be one. Happy hauntings could be the other. Now I'm looking at that and thinking that's really close to my ghosty, but it otherwise sort of fits quite nicely, fills that space. So that's a contender, that's a contender. I think I like that one better because it then makes these guys feel a little bit more comical, if you get what I mean. There's those ones. And then the other options I talked about, that was the one that I thought I could have put hauntingly sweet, but it's not a strong enough sentiment, like it's not big enough. I like something that's got a bit of gravitas. I still love the idea of using this one, I Would Never Ghost You, down the bottom, above the little cemetery stamp set. Maybe I could put Halloween Night, I Would Never Ghost You. That's kind of cute. Haunted Night. I don't want to say horror house because nothing about that's horror housey. Question about that before I go playing with that is, did I fill that? Haha, securely enough. I think I did, just if I got that lined up 100%, because I filled that quite solidly. That's got gaps, so I've got to be careful where I actually lay that sub-sentiment, but I may get away with it. Oh, don't you just love it when people actually plan what they're going to do far better? I'm definitely, I have to tell you folks, a fly by the seat of my pants crafter. I'm not really a planner. Carrie will be rolling her eyes at me right now, I'm sure. Yeah, I love the idea of that because it kind of just works as a fun sentiment. Yeah, I Would Never Ghost You, which means I'd rather use in that case Halloween Night rather than the Happy Hauntings one. Okay, I'm having way too much fun with that. I have to find where the solid bit is. I'll try and mark that through there. Okay. A little bit concerned at how difficult it was to get that one to take. Whether this is going to be a good idea with a thin sub-sentiment, just because of the cardstock that I've got. Hopefully this doesn't all go wrong, but we will see. Let's put in our Grim Reaper where he's going to go. Just there like that. And I'm hoping that that's straight. I'll check it out in a second. No, definitely not. Okay. Would never ghost you. I think that looks pretty good. And then grab our VersaFine Clear, which is that the right one? I'm tempted to use the other one. There's another ink. VersaFine Clear is great with stuff like this, but it's not quite as good as another ink, which is an oil-based ink called Stays On. Only because that last one that I stamped really didn't seem to look like it wanted to dry onto the surface. Whereas Stays On will stamp on things like acetate and surfaces that would normally repel ink. Stays On will go on and stay on really well. So this is a very old ink pad. I've had it for absolutely years. So if this works, it'll be a complete miracle. Oh, hello. That actually looks really good. We'll just do one more for good measure. great. That came up beautifully. So the surface of it is a little bit, it's not actually shiny, but I noticed from the back being very slick that the front surface also has a bit of resist kind of nature to it. That stamped perfectly. So stays on for the win on that one. And I'm going to use it for the sentiment at the top as well, because I think that's going to sit and take much better if I use that there. So I'll line up the next one. That one, or Happy Hauntings, I Would Never Ghost You. Haunting, we will go, I Would Never Ghost You. Yeah, those ones don't really work with the sub-sentiment. I think we're going to go with the Happy Halloween, which kind of, yeah, but it doesn't fit the space nicely. Oh, I like things to make sense. I find that really irritating because I want the sentiment to make sense. Maybe that's a good choice. Spooky Halloween, I Would Never Ghost You. Okay, let's go with that one, which actually is kind of cute because see the look on the O's? They're like little eyes, which sort of kind of match my ghosties. So actually, let's do that one. And as I say, we'll use the Stays On ink because that seems to be printing onto that surface really nicely. I'm just going to prime it on the back of the door here before I pop it into place. That just removes the manufacturing oils and things off the surface. And yeah, I think that's quite whimsical and a bit fun. Let's do that one. I think that actually suits that whole panel really nicely. So yeah, let's go with the Stays On. We got a really good result with that, so I'm going to stick with using that particular one. I think because we've got a slightly slicker surface, that's going to work for us well to have the Stamps On Anything kind of nature of Stays On. As I said before, this is the kind of one that you can stamp on acetate and things like that. I've got a white version of it too. White stamping on acetate. It looks amazing. I'm just releasing that very slowly because I know I need to stamp it again and I don't want it to shift. So I have actually bought some white recently, thinking that that might be quite fun to try some white on acetate. So I'm going to have a go. Today though, we're sticking with the black. It just suits our theme very well for this particular one. I really want a nice dark coverage, which is why I want that, the O's to really stamp nicely. Please do better coverage than that. Now that's not to do with the inks that I'm using, it's to do with the cardstock. This is essentially a cheap cardstock that I picked up, a little card pack that had a slicker surface to it, so it's not great at taking the ink. It's not really, you know, it's just meant to be a card base. It's not really meant to be inked on, which is why I'm having a little bit of trouble getting that solid look. It's good enough though. Good enough. And stamping sort of side to side like this makes sure you get the ink on every angle of the stamp and get a better result from it. I don't know where my little stamp tool is. My table is so messy at the moment. I daren't show you the rest of it. It's chaotic. And I've misplaced my stamp press somewhere. I think that's okay. I may go back over that. I've got a special pen that will be all right to go over the top of that. So I may finish that in a second with that pen, but that's pretty good for now. I need to let that sit and dry properly. So I'm going to have to do the shaker well part of it later on because I can't turn it over until that's now properly dry. But that's all my stamping done for the time being, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So it's coming together pretty nicely. So that little section, and then my card base I've got here. So we want to just put our little shaker beads and figure out exactly where we want that to be. Let's find our little wandering monster. So that was the last little bit I wanted to add into that corner. I just think the whole black and white on pink theme is kind of fun, and that finishes that up pretty nicely. So Spooky Halloween, I Would Never Ghost You. I will catch you tomorrow when this is dry enough to do the next section of it. I just wanted to show you my process for this because that little tiny shaker well, it's a little bit difficult to add the back on. Normally I would do it this way, where I'd put the front of the card like this. I'd put my shaker well mix in there, obviously making that lay flat by putting a bit of sellotape on the inside. And then I would put it on top if I had a larger shaker well and I could contain the contents in the centre better. I can't do it this way, however, because it's such a small area. So what I've chosen to do is I've added a tiny bit of double-sided adhesive. It's just washi tape, basically. On this where it's embossed, I found a little section where it will stick to that quite well. And on the acetate, because it will come cleanly off and not damage any of my stamping or any of the die cut embellishments. And then the next trick for this, to get this on correctly, we need to work in reverse. It's going to be that way round. So I need to make sure when I put my card front on, or card base on, I turn the card base to match the orientation of what I'm doing so that it opens the correct way. So that's trick number 1. So we'll lay that down because we know it needs to go that way. And then the other bit is using the grid on my Misty. I'm going to lay this down so I have this about just over 1/4 of an inch. I can just see the line at the top there. That's about the right distance from the top, and it's going to buckle a little bit and be sort of pushing up in certain places because of the dimension on the die cuts on the other side. So we're going to do our best to get this to adhere flat and completely straight. Let's give this a go. I'm just going to pull all the adhesive off before I put in my shaker pieces. Because what I find happens is if I start doing this after I've got the shaker pieces in, it's pulling and, making the panel move. It does also mean I've got to be very careful when I put the shaker pieces in that I don't connect with any of the exposed adhesive. So I will do that very carefully. But just making sure that the well that they're going to go to is sealed completely and got all the adhesive showing so that connects and seals really well. I'll need to turn it over to get everything to sit flush because you can see it's dipping in certain areas like here, and that's because of the die cuts on the other side being a little bit dimensional. So we'll just get this all done with all the bits that are needing the adhesive exposed. Nearly there. I just need to go back and make sure that this is actually straight, which looks pretty good. And then the next most important thing, which is where I forget sometimes and I screw it up by forgetting to do this step, is we've got to put our shaker elements in. So I'm going to make sure my ghosties are going 2 different ways just for a bit of fun. So I'm trying to cherry pick the bits I want in there. So our ghosties, I want to go at the base so that everything else in the shaker window kind of sits behind them, because obviously that side is the front. And what I've done there is get the little embellishment in the wrong place. I'll stop trying to do it with my fingers because I'm lifting it up and making them go skew-iff. Bear with me a second while I find a pair of tweezers. I'm just going to try and lift those bits up and return them to where they should be. If I do it with my fingers, I'll never get it off the adhesive, but that way I can. And then we want to spread this so that that's a relatively flat shaker kind of area. And then I just remembered about a little, well, that bit clearly doesn't want to go where it's supposed to go. I just remembered about a little micro seed bead set that I've got. Oh, this is seriously a video on how not to do things. I've got that now stuck on the adhesive. Oh, and it's strong adhesive too, which is really good. We want strong adhesive. This is the 3L strips, and they are super strong, as you can see, because that's not wanting to let that little star go. I'm going to have to anchor that with my hand so I don't tip the whole shaker well free. Okay, we've got it. Bear with me a second while I get the little micro beads. These are little tiny beads. I'm just going to put a few. They're very, very tiny. But can you hear that kind of zhuzhy noise? They will be super nice for a little bit of extra sort of kinetic sound in there. I think that'll be enough. And I definitely don't want any of those sitting on the adhesive. And I can see 1 or 2 have bounced out and caught on the adhesive there. So I'll just return that to the shaker well. Is that one too? Yeah. Okay, now I need to straighten up my panel again because it's kind of got a mind of its own and lifted as I was putting the shaker beads in. So that's about where we want it. And if I can get my fingers off without shifting that again, now we want our panel. So remembering that we open it this way when it's facing us, but it needs to be that way to actually put it on. So now I'm going to come in and get as close as I can to those corners, commit, press it down. All of the adhesive was showing, so now it just remains to turn it over, pull off my washi tape bits from those areas that weren't going to be damaged by having that. That's pretty square. That's come up really nicely. That, my friends, is the little shaker window done with my little ghosties in front with a bit of extra kinetic kind of movement. They will shift around. That is my Halloween mini window shaker card. If you enjoyed seeing this shaker card come together, remember to like and subscribe to the channel for more tutorials like this. Thank you so much for any comments that you leave below. It helps us improve our tutorials, and we look forward to having you back here on the Whimsy channel again soon. Bye folks.